Good morning, good afternoon, and good night at whatever time you may watch this live stream or catch it on the replay. My name is Darshawn McAway. Want to say hello to everyone. And before we get the stream going, let's do this. Let's go ahead and give a moment of silence. All right. Thank you for giving a moment of silence to everybody who lost a loved one and people who have passed away unjustly. So, today we're going to talk about my theory of how people can mind their business. And as you can see from the series here, and I'm not for sure how long of a series is going to be, but this is called the Jumpman series, part one, reevaluation. Now, the reevaluation comes from the RC theory of reevaluation counseling. Now, I did some research, and I will say this. I wasn't 100% for sure if I should do this, just based off the fact that the reevaluation counseling or therapy, if you will, was a philosophy brought up by a guy named what's his name? Harvey Jackins. And Harvey Jackins was connected with L. Hubbard at some point. So these two gentlemen had associated themselves a few years ago, and it has something to do with Scientology and a cult. But that's not what this is about. This is about minding your business. And what I had picked up from it was that Harvey Jackins figured out a way for people to reevaluate their perception and thought process on life. Okay. So this is just a brief introduction. This isn't necessarily me talking about, how great of a person Harvey Jackins was. This is me looking at the book and saying, you know what, when I took a reevaluation course that somebody had introduced me to, this is what I took from it. I took this from this, and this is what happened for me. So just real quickly, let me give you a story about how this whole reevaluation process even came about. Back in the year, I want to say 2009. In the year 2009, I had decided to go to do something at Toastmasters, and I was doing some presentations at Toastmasters, and I found myself speaking to a lady named Conley that suggested that I go to therapy, right? And the reason she had suggested that I go to therapy is because she thought I was being misogynistic in one of my speaking events that I was trying to promote my book, Say Hello to Me. And in that, I found it funny, but I took her serious because I was like, well, maybe she saw something that I could grow from, right? So I didn't take it offensive. I just, at that time, I was in such a learning phase of my life that I didn't take anything anyone said to me offensive. I took it as constructive criticism. So she gives me a lady's number named Dorothy Marcy. Dorothy Marcy is a psychologist. She deals with a lot of black men and women, which is funny. She's married to a white man, but she deals with nothing but black people for the most part. So I called Dorothy, and Dorothy asked me how did I get a number. I told her from Connie. She says, "Well, this is how much I charge an hour. When would you like to set up an appointment?" Set up an appointment like that same week, like towards that weekend, maybe that Friday. And I go over there, and I see this little frail, biracial lady with dreads. Totally the opposite of what I heard on the phone. Didn't expect any of that. I'm looking at her and I'm thinking to myself, I might have made a mistake because how can I speak to this lady about my issues? So I was thinking, well, maybe I could speak to her. She looked, predominantly black, but she definitely was mixed. Well, at least I think she was mixed. Maybe she had mixed children. I think she was black, but her husband is definitely white, but they have mixed children. That's what it was. So, needless to say, I go in, sit down, I talk to her about some things, talk to her about a previous relationship that I was in at the time. And I started to realize that, you know what, maybe I do need to do this. And she had invited me to a workshop called UER, United to End Racism. And at the time, I was like, why would she invite me to this? I'm not racist. But I didn't understand all the different isms out there: lesbianism, ageism, childism, like all the isms that you can think of was a part of this workshop. And in that, I knew that there were a lot of people struggling. I wasn't struggling with anything. The only thing I can say I was struggling with was the fact that I was trying to figure out, how am I going to get rich and how soon is it going to happen? And, what type of house and what type of car I'm going to have that's reliable. That was my only struggle. But in that seems like, and even in today's time, that seems like an everyday thought process of how people are going to try to make it. So I say, you know what? All right, Dorothy, I'll go to the workshop. And she goes, good. We have a workshop coming up tomorrow at 6 p.m. And I said, okay, where is it going to be? She said, it's going to be at my place. Oh, I said, okay, cool. And she said, it's free. So I was like, no problem. But what I didn't understand at the time, she just needed an extra person. And she knew that I would complete the even number of people that were going to be there, because they had an odd number, which means that when you do reevaluation counseling, it needs to be 2 people per session. So it was probably 9 people. I would have made number 10. So no problem. That's me looking at it back then. So boom, I pop up and there's about 10 of us. And there were just 2 men, me and another guy. And there was a whole bunch of women, and everybody was black. And everybody was different ages. At the time, I was probably the youngest person. Everybody else was kind of up in age. And, for the most part, most of the women, they had dreads, they were black. And they all had some very different issues that I didn't even think people had. I didn't even think people were thinking that way. The first time I heard about ageism was in the year 2009, and I didn't even recognize what that was. And ageism is one of those things to where even if you're young or old, people use your age against you, and they look down upon it. When you're a young person coming up, oh, you're too young. When you're an old person, get ready to go out of here, you too old. That type of deal. So in that, I'm sitting down and I'm thinking to myself, man, what am I doing here? I was like, I don't think I should be doing this, because I'm around a whole bunch of women, and this is light therapy. None of these people are licensed, but this is just an opportunity for people to vent, to get out what they want to get out. So I say, you know what? All right, let's do this. I'm gonna do it. These people don't know me, and I don't even know if I'm gonna be living here like this anyway. So I'm gonna go for the gusto. Now, I still had my reservations about talking to certain women about some things that I had experienced, but when I sat down with this one lady and she just went all the way out and just told me like damn near her deepest secrets, I felt a little bit comfortable, but I got an opportunity to get some things off my chest. So we're talking, and everybody's, small introduction. Hi, my name is Darshan. This is my age, and this is what I do for a living. Boom, 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 and do that around the table. And I noticed that this one guy, he fell asleep in mid conversation, and everybody looked at me and was like, "Oh yeah, we have to warn you. He falls asleep, but he'll come back too." And I forgot what they call it, narcolepsy or something like that. Well, as a side note, he had been to prison and he got beat up pretty bad. He was getting hit in the head. And once he came out, I guess he developed that condition and he's never been the same. So I saw him come back too, and he picked up right where he left off. So I started thinking to myself, I said, okay, this is crazy. This is crazy. I don't know if I'm going to do this, right? Because I'm like, this dude falling asleep. Everybody in here got these tragic stories. I'm like, maybe this isn't what I thought it was. Maybe this is something else, you know? So it's my turn. It's my turn to sit down with this young lady and tell her some things about myself. So I started talking to her, started telling her some things on the surface level stuff, nothing too deep. Telling her about a relationship, how I used to be a heartless romantic, and I was trying to figure out, well, why were so many women breaking my heart? If you're telling me you're looking for this type of guy, then why is it that women are breaking my heart? And at that time, which is the reason I had wrote the book Say Hello to Me, was because I felt like I had it together and it would be appropriate for women to speak to me. But I was still trying to figure it out at that time. So anyway, I'm talking to this young lady, and I started sensing that most of the women in the class, that they took an attraction to me. One was because I was there to help myself. So they found that men who try to help themselves, they know they're going to end up becoming better, right? At least that's what it would seem to be the obvious. And two, well, maybe since he doesn't have a girlfriend, maybe he'll pick me, right? And they're getting to know me, so they know some stuff that bothers me, which is one reason why a lot of men don't talk to women about like their issues or secrets, is because women start to use that against you at some point. Now, I'm in the class, the workshop, and I'm talking, and I'm looking at the girl. She's looking at me, and I'm like, oh, she's becoming attracted to me, right? And this is how I knew I was correct. So we're talking. We end up switching. Everybody ended up rotating, and the sessions were about 3 minutes apiece. So you got 3 minutes. Well, six total, because you get 3 minutes and the other person gets 3 minutes. And what we were doing was we were switching into different areas of the house. So Dorothy would have somebody in the kitchen. She would have somebody in the living room. She would have somebody in the bedroom. All these different places, so people couldn't hear certain conversations. So it was enough space, to hear certain conversations, but you really couldn't make out what people were saying. So we all get a chance to rotate, and then Dorothy closes it out, and she asked me, since I was new, how did I like it, and would I come back? And I said, yeah. And in that, when we were getting ready to leave, the girl who I first sat down with, she took my number and she was like, hey, I would love to do counseling with you. Just give me a call, hit me up. And I was like, all right, cool. And I was like, I think she putting on her moves, And she was putting her moves on because she was working on herself. She was a university student. She was going through some body weight issues, and she would talk about how men would look at her and she would feel uncomfortable. And that's something that kind of trips me out about women. It's like men are going to look at you, but I get it. Some men can look at you with a disgusting look or a thirsty look or whatever the case may be. But I think you need to appreciate the fact that at least somebody's looking at you. I mean, because you could not be looked at. So anyway, I give her my number, and we ended up hooking up for counseling only like 2 days later. And in that, when we had a conversation, I noticed that she was trying to keep me to herself because the other women, well, at some point everybody exchanged numbers, but the other women wanted me, and it's like all of them wanted me around the same time. And I don't know, maybe it's my ego, maybe it's me being vain, but I felt like they were trying to get with me because they would say things and I would be like, okay, that's kind of inappropriate. Because if I said that to her, she'll probably, tell Dorothy that I said something and then it'd be frowned upon. So I had never said nothing, nothing sexual to them. I never even went into any sexual conversations about my past, which I had a lot of sexual frustration that I wanted to get out on the level of I needed to talk about how women were using me, you know, at least using me without me really knowing about it. So anyway, um, I started thinking to myself, I say, you know what, this reevaluation counseling thing is pretty interesting because here's my opportunity to speak to people and let them know like what my issues are, but at the same time, I can feel a lot of weight and pressure coming off my shoulders. You know, I can feel it working for me. So I stuck with it. I stuck with it for maybe about a good 16 weeks. And out of those 16 weeks, I had ended up becoming like this new person. And the reason I brought up Harvey Jackins is because a part of his story was there's this guy trying to figure out his life. He was working somewhere that he was unhappy with. He was in a relationship that wasn't working, and he was trying to figure out how to make it right. He was trying to figure out what was he doing wrong. So he ended up going to like some type of counseling workshop. But in that, he realized that it's like a reevaluation. So he came out with RC. And by him coming out with RC, of course, he's trying to get the word out there. He ended up associating with some people that had some different interests, people such as L. Hubbard, who was into Scientology. Harvey Jackins really didn't mess with that too much, so they went their separate ways because he didn't want to be affiliated with any type of cult, which is cool, good. Nobody wants to be affiliated with a cult. But what I found interesting about Harvey Jackins was when he took the course himself or was working on the course himself, he became more at peace and more successful in his own right. And that's why I wanted to do this series because I realized after doing the reevaluation counseling, it had a lot to do with not judging people and minding your business. It's more so like hearing people out, letting them talk, asking them questions to kind of help them reevaluate their situation, but not judging them, not really giving them advice on what's the next move. More so, the advice comes from like, how do they feel and what do they feel is going to be the next thing. Now, in this series that I'm going to do, you guys are going to hear about a lot of feelings, okay? Men and women, we have feelings. Things happen. Men have feelings. And I dislike the fact that a lot of people, when you say feelings, it's like, oh, you're thinking from your emotions. Let me tell you something. Let me be very clear. As a man, if you are looking for happiness and want to be happy, that's a feeling. And you better stay with your happiness because if you don't, you're going to find yourself just like everybody else, hating life, not wanting to be around people, thinking that everyone's always out to get you when your life is supposed to be about being happy. That's your purpose. So you're going to hear me talk about feelings a lot in this series because I'm feeling my way through life and I'm also thinking my way. But for the most part, when you come up as a child and you start transitioning into a young adult and an adult, you are feeling your way through everything. You're very in tune with your feelings. So I want to make sure that everyone understands that I'm not promoting Harvey Jackins. What I'm promoting is the reevaluation of yourself. How do you get to where you want to be for yourself? Because I realized after talking to those women and talking to that guy that they helped me become successful. Well, the fact that I was able to talk to them and they didn't judge me was the thing. Because anybody could judge you after a story. Anybody can judge you after a story. So I'm looking for something in this book to help me um, close out this introduction, because I want you guys to understand um, a part of this process and where I'm coming from. All right. So how to begin? What you can do to help your partner when you're doing a reevaluation. If you're sitting down with someone, you can help them become free of the rigid patterns of tension, which can cause trouble and prevent success. Okay. The first thing you must do and do very well is listen. Listen with interest, with full attention. If you listen in this manner, your client will be encouraged and enabled to talk about himself, him or herself, about his patterns and distress. They may relate to you in terms of difficulties, or he or she may relate them as experiences that occurred. Many light tensions seem able to be unraveled because your client is enabled to think about them much more thoroughly if he or she can talk about them to an interested listener. So, one of the first things you need to do is find someone who's going to listen to you intently, right, with a lot of interest. And in that, you're going to end up developing a way to ask questions to help that person become, less stressful and how to think their way into their own success. I'm going to read a part in here. It says asking questions. The second thing you can do to help your client is ask questions. These questions are not designed to obtain information for you as counselor, although the client may think that's the point. These questions are first to reassure the client of your interests. Second, to steer and guide his or her attention. And that's very important. When you're sitting down trying to talk to someone or anyone wants to talk to you, the best thing for you to do is to listen with interest. Because when you listen with interest, you'll start to realize that that other person, they're going to talk themselves out of their situation, out of their trouble, and into their own success. So that's what I really want to get that point across, because it's very important. Let's see. Let's read one more. Permit and encourage discharge. Let's read this last paragraph, and then we're going to close out this session, and then we're going to start possibly maybe part 2 tomorrow, and we may go into things not to do. Permit and encourage discharge. Now, the discharge is on the notion of helping that person get free from their current situation. And it reads, much of the time with your client will be spent seeking an opportunity for her to discharge emotional or physical tension in one or more of the precise ways we've discussed above. You will be directing your client's attention to where such discharge is likely to occur and will encourage the discharge if it begins or shows signs of being able to begin. When discharge slows or stops, you will persist time after time to directing the client's attention once more to the point where the discharge can continue. I think they should use a different word instead of discharge, but you guys get the point. So this is the Jumpman series, and the Jumpman series, it came about when I was listening to a song with Drake called Jumpman, and I was thinking, how great I feel as a person. And I equate my great feeling with one of the greatest basketball players of all time. And I wanted people to have an opportunity to become great themselves. You know, a lot of times when we get out here in the world, we measure our success against other men and women. You know, I've heard someone say to me, if you're not trying to become a billionaire, then what are you living for? If you're not trying to have all these houses all over the world, then, you know, what's the point of you living? And a lot of that type of stuff, that's added pressure for no reason because people aren't waking up in the morning. Well, not everybody's waking up in the morning thinking, I got to go get some type of Lamborghini and I got to get 20 of them. Or I got to go buy me 1,000 houses. Like, people are not really thinking that far into it. A lot of people are trying to figure out, how do I pay my next bill? So in that, I wanted people to kind of just reevaluate their own lives for themselves. What is it that you want for yourself? How do you want to live this life for you? You know, what's the whole point of you living? You know, have you figured out your purpose? And it's very important for people to understand, you know, how to live their own life. You know, we always tell people, like, you know, hey, you should do it like this, and this is how you become successful. And I just think sometimes that people are just saying stuff, just saying it, you know, when the whole thing is to live life to the fullest. But when they say to the fullest, what do people mean by that? It's the fullest for you. It's your life. How do you want to live it? You know, that's your life. How do you want to live your life? Because life is short. You have to live it how you see fit. You got to figure it out for yourself. And if someone's giving you an opportunity to speak and they're listening, that's your opportunity to work yourself out of your situation, especially if somebody is really there to help you. You know, like, for a long time after that, I became a very good listener. And I could hear the person's problem, but I can also know that, oh, this is a problem that is an easy fix. A lot of these problems had stemmed around finances too. And when I was speaking to the women, a lot of those situations came from how they were aging. So women had different issues. The guy that was there, couldn't really get a handle on his because he kept on falling asleep. But hopefully he got his life together. I ended up emailing Marcy years ago, telling her how successful I became. And I had never looked back after that. But from that year, from 2009 up until now, I've noticed the different issues with people. I've become so good at minding my own business that I understand why certain things happen in the world with people. And I go, well, it's not my problem to fix. If you really want to get help, you'll go for it. I went for it. It worked out for me. I'm so successful in my own personal life. It is beyond my wildest dreams. And it shows in my life. But I don't want people to measure what I'm doing as their measurement for themselves. It's very easy to do. Michael Jordan and Darshawn McAway are two different people. I can't look at Michael Jordan's life and measure my life to his. It's just something that doesn't even really make sense. And that's what trips me out a lot of times about what people do when they look at the value of success. I can't look at Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, or the 700 plus billionaires in the world and go, well, I'm not successful because I don't have what they have. Well, how about they don't have what I have? I don't know how much of a peace of mind they have. I don't know how much love they receive. I don't know how great of a health they're in. So it's not good for you to look at everyone else's life. It's good for you to just focus on your own. Keep your personal opinions to yourself because everybody is going through something. I'm still going through something. I'm at the point now where I'm looking at my life and I go, I can clearly see that I'm getting older. When I was in my 20s, I was a fit bot. I was fit all outdoors. And you would think that, oh, well, all you have to do is just keep on working out and do this. Yeah, as you get older, you start getting busy with certain things and you start losing the priorities on your body. Now, I'm getting right back into it, but I can tell you now, my body's definitely changed. I had got real sick in the year 2018, and that really changed things for me. I ended up developing like high blood pressure or something. You know, I have it under control now, but things started changing. So I'm dealing with something else. I'm dealing with life looking me in the mirror saying, hey, you're not that 20 something, you're not that teenager no more. You're getting on up there and say, climbing up the other side of the hill. I have a child. I got to make sure I take care of her and raise her correctly. I'm in a marriage. Got to make sure everybody's well balanced. So, got to keep a roof over everybody's head. It's not just solely my responsibility, but a lot of that weight falls on my shoulders. A lot of it. But I'm in a good relationship. There's a lot of help on both sides. So, we're going to close it out by saying that this particular stream is just an introduction. I don't want people to think that this is any sort of cult teaching. This is not. This is simply me taking the information that's in this manual and reading it to you guys so you can understand when you do sit down with somebody how to listen and how to ask the right questions. And if you have an opportunity to go out into the world and look at the world with a different set of eyeballs, look at the world from a place of, you know what, I can be compassionate, I can have sympathy and empathy, but I'm not going to sit up here and judge people that I don't know. I'm not going to sit up here and play good cop, bad cop. I'm just going to sit up here and mind my business. And if I feel the need to do so, if I feel the need to help somebody that I can see that is in clear trouble, that is an emergency, then by all means go ahead. But if you don't, that's okay too. And that's something very hard for a lot of people to reevaluate. Anyway, we want to thank everybody for listening. We want to say a special hello to those of you who are going to catch us on the replay. Today's stream was brought to you by Balance Cologne. Go to balancecologne.com. I'm your host, Darshawn McAway. If you're looking to learn anything about me, go to darshawnmcaway.com. Also, check out our best-selling children's series on babyauthors.com. We have a lot of different merchandise on there, so go to babyauthors.com to purchase the merch. Also, if you're looking to hear more about me and how I speak to other authors across the world, go to wowpodcast.me. That is my podcast where I speak to New York Times and USA Today best-selling authors, and we share ideas and try to figure out what's going on. Now, if you want to be on the podcast, just email me at wowpodcast@mail.com. And always remember, life is short. Live it how you see fit. And if you feel the need to do so and you just want to bless someone, well, by all means, feel free to bless me. Go to Cash App, $1plan. I'm your host, Darshawn McAway. We want to thank you guys so much for tuning in. We'll catch you guys later.